Hello, my name is Myra, and for today's video, I wanted to talk about all the books that I read in September. We're literally in the last 3 months of 2023. But anyway, if you can't tell, I'm kind of already prepared because I have like some purple in my hair, I have some blood red nails, and I really do love the fall. So I'm kind of ready for it. It's inevitable anyway. But yeah, so I'm very excited about the months to come. But I wanted to go ahead and just talk about all the books that I read in September. Now, I believe I read like 12 books. That number could be wrong. We'll figure it out together. But I had some really good books that I read. I had some that were okay. But overall, it was a pretty great reading month for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first book that I read, and I do have my Goodreads app on here, so if you kind of see me glancing down, that's what I'm looking at. But the first book that I read is Unravel Me by Becca Mack. Now, this is a hockey romance book, and it is part of a series. This is actually book 3 in the series, and this is Adam's book. So Adam is a professional hockey player, and he is actually mentioned in the first 2 books as well. And you're really cheering for him. I actually was super excited for his book because you basically saw his relationship fall apart. He was gonna propose to this just horrible girlfriend that he had, and it was because they were high school sweethearts and they really loved each other. But at this point in his career, you know, he was at the top of his career and she was basically just taking advantage of him, cheated on him. And so that's where, like, you find out about all these events before. So book 3, I was very excited for him. Now, in this story though, he of course is dealing post breakup, and he wants to start dating again. He wants to meet someone and just get to know them, but his biggest fear is this person not knowing him for him. And so one day on a random hike with his dog, he ends up meeting this girl, and they pretty much crash or like bump into each other because of his dog. And she's also walking a dog, and he ends up finding out that she's actually a vet student. So she is going to become a veterinarian. Oh my God, I can't say that word. She's gonna become a vet. And the dog that she's walking is from a clinic where she volunteers and works at. And so she is walking the dog because the dog actually has like trauma from its previous owners. And so he already really likes that about her. Like, she seems a lot different to like the types of girls that would normally be interested in him. And the best part, of course, is the fact that she has no idea who he is, because she doesn't know that he's a professional hockey player. She doesn't watch sports, so she doesn't know that that's who he is. And so he loves that even more because he feels like, okay, this is like the opportunity for her to really get to know me for me. Now, the book does go on from there, of course. They continue getting to know each other. Now, one thing though is that she is a single mom. And so like in the first like 2 dates that they go on, he's not aware of it, and then she lets him know. Now, this book personally, like I said, I was really excited about it. I only rated it a 3-star. I think that it was a little bit too long. It was too cheesy for me. Like a lot of cheese, like too much. And I love cheese, okay? But this was very cheesy. It also felt very unrealistic. For me, for example, if now I am in a relationship, but say I'm like dating someone and I'm getting to know this person, I've gone on 2 dates with this person, and this person, I'm not saying show me pictures of your kid or tell me everything, like all the private details about your kid, because I'm still relatively a stranger, but you should disclose the fact that you have a child, because some people, it may sound mean, but some people don't want to date people that have children if they themselves don't have children. And I feel like that's fair. Like, it's okay. You know, if they don't want to date someone, then good. Like, you also don't waste your time, because if they don't want to, you know, date somebody with kids and you have a kid, well then they don't want to, then good, on to the next one, you know? And I don't know, to me, I was like, this would never happen in real life. And like, he was just too okay with it. Like, it didn't even bother him that she didn't even bring it up. And I'm like, okay, like, I know that you're a nice guy, Adam, but like, you're being a little too nice. So yeah, just, I don't know. And the book, like I said, it just kind of seemed a little too long. So I rated it a 3-star. And I was, honestly, I was pretty disappointed because I was so excited for this book. But yeah, some people loved it. I saw like a lot of people on Goodreads are like, oh my God, 5-star, I loved it. Good for them. I'm happy that they liked it. For me, solid 3 stars, nothing more. Now after that book, I really just kind of wanted to press the reset button because I just was so disappointed. Like, I even was like skimming through the book. Okay, so anyway, I needed a reset button, and so I hopped back onto the Ice Planet Barbarian series, which, if you don't know, honestly, it's pretty much smut. There's not really plot. The plot points that come about here are like people resonating and like living on this planet. Now if you don't know what it is, it's basically a series. I think there's like 20 books. Honestly, there's a lot. And so in this series, these women from Earth get abducted. They're all 22-year-old super healthy women, and when they're on their spaceship, they're trying to figure out a way to like basically escape, even though they know they're no longer on Earth. And the ship though ends up having a bunch of problems, and so they basically drop or like separate that part of the ship and leave them there, and they take off with the intent of coming back to get them. Now these aliens were horrible, right? And so these women are like, nope, there's no way that we're just gonna sit here and wait for them to come back and get us. We need to figure out where we are, if we can get back to Earth or what. Now very quickly they figure out they are not on Earth. They are definitely on a different planet. They have like 2 suns. It's icy in there, and there's these blue like avatar looking men or people that inhabit like that planet. Now you do find out that there aren't very many women, and there is a thing called resonating. So it's a kui, or I think that's at least how you pronounce it, and it's basically a parasite that you need in order for you to not die on the planet, because within a few days you'll basically get really sick and die. And the kui though, it finds the perfect mate for you, and it'll resonate, and so it'll kind of like vibrate in your chest. And so that starts happening with these women as they start pairing off, and the whole intent of you mating is of course to then have children, you know, grow the tribe and continue yeah, like living basically. The book that I read was book 3. I have read the other 2 books. Now this one was with Kira and Aeko. I'm pretty sure that's how you say her name. Now Kira actually thought that she was barren, that she was never going to be able to have kids, and so the kui though has helped her heal, and you'll see a lot of things happen. Now she doesn't want them to know that she can't have children, because then she feels like, okay, they might kick me out, because here they're hoping that maybe eventually I'll resonate for someone, but like if they find out that I can't have children, they might not want to hunt for me and provide protection to me. And so she's going through all this stuff, but that's really like the plot. And then next I started with the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. I loved this series. Okay, so I started with book 1, and book 1 is Flawless. Now Flawless has to do with, he's a very famous bull rider, and he's very well known, been in the industry a long time, and of course has a ton of sponsors. One of his sponsors being a huge milk company. Now a video of him ends up going viral of him basically saying that he hates milk, that he's never liked milk, and that doesn't make his sponsors look really good, because how are you going to be getting a big fat check from a milk company and then you're over here publicly saying in a video that you don't like milk? And so his agent ends up saying, that is not good, you're gonna, like, I've had to do a lot of damage control, you already lost a sponsor, and the sponsor is bringing in most of his income. And so that's when he's kind of like, okay man, like I really messed this up, like what should I do? And his agent says, my daughter is gonna be assigned to you, she already works for me anyway, and she's gonna be your shadow. She's gonna be going with you on these tours where you're doing these rodeos and riding the bulls to try to like ultimately win like the biggest championship. But in the meantime, she's gonna be with you all the time. Whether you're at home, whether you're on the road, my daughter is gonna be assigned to you. Now, she doesn't want to be assigned to him for a few reasons. One, she thinks he's kind of rude, and she also doesn't want to be anyone's babysitter. And 2, she actually used to have a poster of him from like back in the day, because she always thought he was really handsome. And so she's kind of like, oh man, like now I'm assigned to him, and like I used to have a huge crush on him, you know, whatever, and I need to keep things professional. And they do. Now he's not very happy about the fact that he's now gonna have a babysitter, but he knows that he can't risk losing any more sponsors, and so he goes along with it. Now of course, because there's so much close proximity, and you know, he really starts to get to know her. They're spending all this time together. He takes her with him to her, like, his like family ranch. So now she's getting to know his siblings, his dad, and there's just like a lot of interaction between them. So of course the attraction and all these interactions eventually lead to more. Now, just because it's small town, it does not mean that it's not spicy. And trust me, the spice was immaculate. It was perfect. It was great. There was so much tension. Also, I laughed out loud so much. And another thing that I really like is every single chapter starts off with text messages between either the two characters or like them and someone else, or like a group text. And it was so funny. Like, I honestly was laughing out loud so much with overall with just the whole series. But Flawless was book 1. Now the next book was Heartless. Heartless is the heroine from the first book's best friend and the brother of the guy. So basically the series follows brothers, but in this case it's the oldest brother. Now he is a single parent. He has the cutest little boy, and honestly he was so cute. Like, he was so funny, and I kind of kept thinking about my nephews like when I was like reading the book. But he's a single dad because, not because anything happened to his wife, but because she simply didn't want to live in a small town. She thought that she deserved more than that. Asked for a divorce and basically said, yeah, sure, you can have custody. Like, I'm cool with that. And she pretty much only sees her son like once a year. So she's not mother of the year for sure. Now he needs to find a babysitter because the babysitter that his son used to have, she's older. She can't really run around. Her son's a 5-year-old, like his son's a 5-year-old. So he's trying to run around everywhere and super active, has a ton of energy, and he really needs a babysitter. Now, all these babysitters that he's been interviewing though, they basically are trying to throw themselves at him and think that by them babysitting his son, like, they're gonna somehow get with him. And he's like, no, I just purely want someone that's interested in actually like being with my son and properly taking care of him, because he's a very protective dad. Like, I would even say like a helicopter parent. Now, if you don't know what a helicopter parent is, basically like a parent that's just like hovering and just constantly there, like making sure everything's okay. Now, he's not having luck, and the heroine from the first book ends up saying, hey, I have the perfect person for you, knows how to deal with a bunch of people, like has experience, whatever. And he's like, okay, fine, sure, she can come. Now she ends up coming, and you know, to the small town, and he is very attracted to her, which he's like, this is a problem already. Nope, this is not gonna happen. But he ends up seeing her interact with his son, and he's like, oh, but like my son really likes her, and she's actually really good with my son. And so he tells her, you know what, okay, fine, I'll give you a try. You can stay here at my house, and you know, just on the weekends you can be free unless I absolutely, you know, need you to help out. And so she's so funny, and she's so sure of herself. She's very outspoken. I loved her as a heroine. Willa was so fun. And so Willa starts like, you know, really liking the town, and of course she has her best friend Summer there. And so as like she's kind of getting to know the whole family, and she starts to really get under his skin, and they end up just really forming, like, she's definitely sunshine and he's grumpy, and they just end up getting each other, and there's so much attraction there. And she's attracted to him from the beginning as well, but she doesn't want him to think like, oh great, like she's just trying to be here to like, you know, get with me or whatever. But it was so good. Like, it was such a good book. I think it's probably, honestly, I think it's my favorite in the series. Like, it was just so good. Definitely 5 stars for me. Then after that, I read the third book, which was Powerless. Now, Powerless has to do with now the cousin, and like the cousin of the brothers, and the like youngest son's best friend. So basically in the story, they're like childhood friends. They've known each other for a long time. Now, it's always been known that she's always had a crush on him. His name is Jasper, and she's always had a crush on him. Now, they did have an age gap, so of course, like, he was already a teenager, she was still younger, and so they kind of made it as like, oh, puppy love, like she definitely has a crush on you, blah blah blah. And I mean, he was like, she's a kid, I'm literally 16, I think she was like 11. So he was like, okay, cute, but like, you know, it's like that type of thing. Now they're full-grown adults. She announces that she's getting married, and he's kind of like, wait, what? Not only that, but her fiance is such a jerk. So rude. Like, he's so rude, doesn't let her talk, is very controlling, clearly manipulative. And so he's kind of thinking, well, now I'm gonna lose my best friend, because through the years they just became really good friends. And even though they always had a connection when they were little, he is now like, I'm gonna lose her now because she's gonna get married. Now it gets to be her wedding day. She's about to walk down the altar, and her fiance cheated on her, which she actually, instead of being sad, she is so relieved. And that lets her know, like, I'm not even sad. Like, it's not even bothering me that someone sent me this video of my about to be husband being with another woman, and I feel relieved instead of being upset. And so she ends up, of course, like, calling off the wedding. Now her dad is furious because her dad wanted, like, the marriage was basically gonna bring him like a new alliance for like his company, his business, whatever. She doesn't care. She's like, for once in my life, I'm putting myself first. I don't care. And so she ends up going to the small town, and she's there for a few days, spending time with Jasper, spending time with her uncle and her cousins. But then they need to take some hay over to another farm, which is where their sister lives. And he volunteers to go, and she volunteers to go with him. So now Jasper and Sloan are gonna basically go on a road trip, and it's just gonna be the two of them together. So of course, a lot of things about their past come up. It turns out that maybe her feelings never went away, and not only that, but maybe he also reciprocates those feelings towards her. And so it's a really sweet book. It wasn't my favorite in the series, but it was still a really sweet book. A lot of funny moments. Like, it was so funny. But yeah, overall, great book. Okay, now last but not least is the fourth book, which is called Reckless. So Reckless has to do with Winter, which is Summer's sister. Summer is a heroine from the first book, and Theo. Now Theo is the basically understudy, you can say. So he's getting coached by Summer's boyfriend. So the hero from the first book, this is like his prodigy. Like, he learned how to ride from Theo's dad, so now he's teaching everything to Theo. Now they end up having the funniest thing where, like, Winter's at a gas station, she's pumping gas, and this guy comes out. Now she's a doctor. She's a very classy woman, actually. She's a very classy woman, and she's a doctor. She's very refined, and she's pumping gas one day, and this really good looking guy comes out. Now he's totally the opposite of her type, you know, like combat boots and like slouchy jeans, and she's in a small town, so she's like, oh gosh, like, you know, whatever. But she can't like hide the fact that she's very attracted to him. She's like, wow, he's like a very sexy human being. Now he catches her looking, gives her like a little smile. She kind of like just turns abruptly, continues pumping gas, and then leaves. Now it is a small town, so as she's riding over to the home, she's gonna go to Summer's like boyfriend's family's house to have dinner for the holidays. Now this guy is like on her, is like flashing the high beam lights at her, and she's kind of like, I guess because she's driving too slow, and she's getting annoyed. They end up having this whole argument right in front of the house. Everybody inside the house hears the argument, but they end up, she thinks that he's following her, and she finds out he's actually there for that same dinner. And so now they have to have dinner together, okay? So they end up having dinner, and they're all there, and he actually right away says, like, that's my future wife, I think, because she's feisty, and I don't know. He's like, that's my future wife. Now they tell him, like, you're crazy, you need to stop, because she's known as like the ice princess, which I know is kind of ironic given that her name is Winter, but that's what she's kind of known for. She's known for being just very like logical and like stone cold, and like nothing gets to her type of thing. But it's actually the complete opposite. And something that I really liked about Winter is that it's not that she doesn't feel anything, it's just that she feels things so deep that the only thing she can do is put these walls, because otherwise she risks falling apart. And she just recently had lost her baby, and she had just filed for divorce from her husband who was a horrible human being. And I don't want to go into details because you will find out in the books, and I don't want to spoil anything, but horrible human being. And so she's just kind of trying to piece put her life back together, and the main thing that she wants to do is to get along with Summer, because her and Summer didn't really have the best relationship, and they don't really have a normal sister relationship, and so she wants to now get those to be the case. And so they end up getting to know each other, whatever. Now something does happen between Theo and Winter, and they don't tell anyone about it. But then some time goes on. There is a time jump in this book, and Theo ends up coming back into Winter's life. And I don't want to really, like, I really don't want to spoil anything because I went into it blind. I just kind of kept going through the series, but it was so good. Like 10 out of 10, definitely recommend. Okay, now I then went to something totally different, and I read Scheme. Now Scheme is by Colette Rhodes. This book is actually an Omegaverse book, and this one has to do with Margot, who is an Omega. And typically in this story, there's usually like an Omega and like alphas, or at least an alpha and an Omega. And she happened to go through something pretty traumatic when she was younger, that you do find out when you're reading the book. And she pretty much swears off ever being with an alpha. And so she decides, you know what, I'm gonna be an independent Omega. I'm just gonna be focused on myself. I'm not gonna be focused on finding an alpha. I have zero interest in that. When my heats come, or like when I want to be with someone, then I'll go and I'll find whatever I need to look for, but otherwise zero interest. Now she lives in London, has her own apartment, and she ends up, like, she has really close friends, and she meets this guy named Kit at one of the parties. And Kit is an alpha, but he has zero interest in being with anyone because he's a travel photographer, and he knows that if he were to be with an Omega, he'd have to settle down somewhere, and it's pretty hard with the job that he has. And so he ends up finding out though that Margot doesn't have an interest for an alpha, and because he doesn't have an interest for an Omega, she's like, well, okay, sure, I'll help you like keep Omegas at bay and keep them away from you. And so they end up actually forming like a good friendship, but she is attracted to his scent, and he is pretty attracted to her. Like he finds her very attractive because he's not used to an Omega being the way that she is. She's very independent. She's not just throwing herself at him. She has her own life. She has her boundaries. And so this one was a lot more different than other Omegaverse books that I've read, and I really liked it. I really don't want to go into details again. I hate when people spoil things for me, and so sometimes like I worry about saying too much in these videos, but it really was such a good book, and it is an Omegaverse book, so it's really not long. I think this book, let me see, I'm pretty sure, yeah, this book has 313 pages, and they go like this. I read it in like, I think pretty much a day. It was such a good book. And I rated it 5 stars. For an Omegaverse book, 5 star. It was different, and it really teaches you a lot too about like just self-love and trying to like just put yourself first and not letting other people like bring you down. And like even if it has to do with like your own family, it's like just drawing those boundaries and being like, no, like no, I'm not gonna let you like tear me down, type of thing. So the next book I read was The Wrong Bride by Caterina Mora. Now this book has to do with, I actually thought it had to do with the mafia, but it has to do with a very wealthy family who arranges marriages based on basically what's gonna be the best for the family. Now this book was interesting because I thought it was mafia and it wasn't, right? But not only that, so in this one, Aries, so he has known who his fiance is gonna be for years, right? Now his original fiance was supposed to be Raven, but that turns out to not be the case, and instead of it being Raven, it ends up being Raven's sister. He does fall in love with her and they actually start dating, but because she's an actress and his family owns a lot, like has a lot of connections in like Hollywood and just like the media, she doesn't want people to think that the only reason why she's getting all these roles and getting all these films is because of his family. And so she keeps it a secret, even though they've been dating for basically like 5 years or something like that. And they want the announcement of them even ever being together to be when they eventually get married. Now at this point, she's been postponing the wedding for a long time, and he hasn't necessarily been pressuring her to get married, but like he understands like she wants to continue acting, etc. Now Raven though, and what they don't know is that Raven's always been in love with Aries, and that was originally who she was gonna marry. And now basically all these years she's had to see her sister date this guy and like be with him, be there for the holidays. If they were sleeping over at their parents' house, like they had the room right next to her, so she, you know, she could hear everything. But something happens where the wedding is like, okay, we've postponed it twice, you're gonna have it again, whatever. And Heather, I think that's her name. I could have the name wrong. I don't know. I think her name's Heather. She ends up saying like, no, I can't get married because I have this role that I just landed, and it's okay, your grandma will understand, she'll postpone it. And the grandma says, you know what, I've gone along with this for so long, your original fiance was supposed to be Raven anyway, so you're gonna marry Raven. Now Raven, because she's been in love with him, she's like, okay, like I love him, but also he's been dating my sister for all these years, and the only person that knows that she's in love with him is her best friend, which happens to be Aries' sister. And so the best friend tells her, just who cares, go for it, marry my brother, like that's who my grandma's choosing anyway. And so she tells, like Raven tells her sister, hey, like his grandma's not kidding, like if you don't come back, I'm gonna have to marry him. And she's like, no, you won't, don't worry. But Raven also has to do it, because if she doesn't do it, she, like, the grandma's basically threatening that the whole deal's gonna fall apart, and that she's not going to be getting the like shares of the company from her side of the family that she was supposed to inherit anyway. And so they end up going along with it, they end up getting married, and of course this just causes problems all around, because Raven's mom is like, oh, that's okay, like in 3 years you can get a divorce and then your sister can marry him. But she's kind of like, no, because how is it fair that now like it's gonna become public knowledge that I'm married to him, and my whole life has to now be on pause for what, for 3 years, so that my sister can go do whatever she wants. And then what's the story gonna be for the media about, like, you know, my sister being with him now? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so it causes a lot of problems. It causes problems with her sister, so much drama. And in the meantime, like, Aries is kind of like, well, I'm in love with her, but also like I can't deny the fact that you and I, Raven, have always had a connection. And they have. They've always had a different connection. In fact, they've kind of had like deeper connections than he ever did with her sister. But I don't know, the book was just like interesting, but it was kind of different because I don't know, I tried to imagine, like, I know it's fiction, but I tried to imagine like, okay, how would I feel if my sister had to marry my boyfriend? And then suddenly they're in love, but like my boyfriend's been with me for like years, and like there's a ton of history, but then now my sister, like, I don't know. So that was a little bit weird. It got a little bit weird in some parts, to be honest. But I don't know, some of it was a little like, come on girl, you gotta have a little bit more confidence. Like, you have your own business, you're a supermodel, you're literally one of like the hottest women, like you're on covers of magazines, and that's literally what they're calling you. But yeah, overall, solid 4 stars. I enjoyed the book. Next, I read another book about the Barbarian series. So this was Barbarian Mind, which is book number 4. And again, it just follows another human with another one of the barbarians. And of course, very smutty, not a lot of plot, but I just kind of wanted like a reset button for myself. Next, I read When She Unravels, and it's the Fallen series. I loved this book. It's a mafia book, and I'll put the name of the person whose channel I screenshotted it from, because she recommended it, and I was like, oh my god, that sounds like such a great book. This was a very different mafia than mafia books that I'm used to. So in this one, the heroine is already married, okay? When you start the book, she's married, and she's married to one of the enforcers of her father's mafia. Her father is like the head of one of the mafias, and or like mafia families, and she's married to the enforcer. So the enforcer, like by nature in mafia romance books, like the enforcer is like the one that's like enforcing what the Don is ordering. So they're very violent, they're very, you know. This one though, he's like pretty twisted, okay? And I'll let you find out if you read the book exactly why I'm saying that he's twisted. Point is, one day he ends up abducting and bringing to their home this young girl, and he wants her, or his wife, which is the heroine of the book, to be there to witness the torturing of this individual. Now she's really young, and she actually reminds the heroine a lot of one of her younger sisters, and so she's just like, I can't do it, like I can't help him, but also I don't want him to kill me, like he's my husband. And so she ends up helping the woman escape, and she steals a bunch of cash and puts her on a plane. She just tells her, just book a flight, hurry up, we'll leave like the first flight out of here, and it happens to be in Spain. And she's like, that's fine, I can get picked up there, whatever. Now she knows that now she also has to get out, because her dad is not going to get involved in their marriage, just because those are like the mafia rules. Like her dad's not going to interfere and say like, yeah, go ahead, my daughter doesn't want to be with you anymore. Like, no, he's going to tell her like, you need to come and obey your husband. And so she's trying to find any flight that's out of there, and the only one that still has seats left and that's about to leave is one for Spain, and it's the exact same one that that girl just took. So she's like, that's okay, like I'll just make sure she doesn't see me, whatever. So she hops on the plane, lands in Barcelona, and she's like, okay, I'm not gonna stay here though, I'm gonna leave somewhere else. So she ends up taking the first flight out of there, and it's to Ibiza. And when she gets there, she is like, okay, I need to figure out, I only have like a few $1,000s in cash, what am I gonna do? And so she ends up meeting these girls, and they tell her, hey, you know what, actually the nightlife here is really popular, I'm sure we can get you a job where we work, just come and, you know, come at this time, wear this, and you can ask for a job. And so she goes, she ends up meeting this really attractive man, and she tells him, hey, I really need a job, like please, like I don't have any money, I was mugged, and I really needed the money. And so he says, no, we already hired for the season. And she says, just give me anything, I promise, like I will do it like to the best of my ability. And so he ends up thinking like, you know what, this girl is like probably some rich girl who made her dad mad, so I'm gonna give her like a really tough week to try to prove herself, but I know she won't even last a day. Well, she ends up lasting the whole week. And so he gives her a permanent position with his company at his club. Now he does own multiple clubs and restaurants and hotels, but he ends up giving her a position there at the club. And so she starts working for him. Now he's very intrigued by her, and she's very like attracted to him, but she knows like, no, that's my boss, you know, whatever. And so they do this little like dance every time they're like around each other, or like they're attracted to each other, but he's kind of like, no, who cares? And he really cares about her well-being, and he doesn't know why, because he's never had that happen. And he's very attractive, very rich, very powerful, so women have never been an issue for him. But he just, like, there's really something about her. Now there is like a plot twist that I did not see coming. I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. And then, you know, because of what happened back home, they're looking for her, they don't know where she's at, and so you do have some drama that happens there. And he is kind of like, nope, like you're gonna be with me, but also how do we get like rid of your family type of thing. So yeah, it's like pretty intense. I loved it. Enough like mafia in there, enough romance. Definitely recommend, 5-star. So anyway, those are all the books that I read in September. If you've read any of these books, let me know. If you have any recommendations, please let me know. Again, this one had a mix of everything, you know? There's some small town, there's some sports, there's a little bit of, you know, not paranormal, but like kind of fantasy, you know, with aliens. And then now you also have, you know, some mafia. So I definitely sprinkled a little bit of everything, but I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.